Well, here we are, less than 1 week until Ohio State is back on the practice field for spring camp and down to the final two previews on the beat. Welcome in. It is a Wednesday. We are presented by the Waterworks. He's Jeremy Birmingham, and I am Austin Ward. Almost to the finish line, bud.
We did it. This version or this edition, this segment of the offseason has actually been pretty great. I'm not going to sit here and lament it too much. I'm happy that there's been little to no dramatics around Ohio State.
Oh, no. We still have 6 days to go, Berm.
All right. I said little to no. That's why I said to this point, I suppose.
Remember what I said at the beginning of January? Oh, boy, what a mistake that was.
Yeah, there's always a chance that things are going to go wonky from here, I suppose. But to this point, it's been good. We are getting ready for some new faces around the program, which I'm excited to get to know. And finally, this week, we're going to get an opportunity to get some FaceTime with those folks. We'll see how that works out and what it leads to down the road. But the reality is, and I said this on the Rooster Show on Monday, the fact that like Mick Walker and I from Letterman Row were able to be out and watch football and watch a competitive camp at the Elite 11 and the opening regionals on Sunday, like I'm just glad that football's here. Getting geeked for some Columbus Aviators opportunities down the road. And right now it's all everything's coming up Millhouse. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean because there are a lot of new faces, and several of them are going to be playing safety for Ohio State. A couple of them almost certainly need to become starters for the Buckeyes by the end of spring camp. So as we get into the last spot remaining for the Silver Bullets, it's a complicated list. And I know that you and I have both talked, pretty extensively about, Terry Moore and Earl Little and how important they are, how early on Ohio State targeted them on the board. But that's still like a little bit of a gamble on the unknown. And when you have a list like this, that if you're watching on 97.1 The Fan's YouTube channel, 10 TV's YouTube channel, or 10 TV Plus, that you can see it. If you're listening, we'll certainly run it down. When you have just those three players at safety returning, and in this era, whether it's post Jim Knowles or not, of safeties driving defenses, just having Jaylen McClain, Leroy Roker, and Deshaun Stewart back is kind of daunting to think about.
It's spooky because it's not necessarily because you don't trust those guys or because you don't think that they're the types of players that can be difference makers. But when you lose Malik Hartford, who you thought would be back, when you lose Bryce West, who you thought would be back, when you lose Fahim Delane, who you thought would be back, when you lose Cody Haddad, who you thought would be back, we all knew that there was going to be some substantial changes in this room when you lose Caleb Downs and Lorenzo Styles. That's natural. It's just the deluge of the rest of these guys leaving that you didn't expect players who are in a position or who were in a position to go out and not just compete for a significant playing time at Ohio State, but to be starters at Ohio State. And I think I have to applaud guys like Malik Hartford for reading between the lines in some ways and saying, hey, if they're going out and looking to bring in Terry Moore and Earl Little Jr., maybe that doesn't portend a lot of great opportunities for me down the road. But it's kind of bittersweet, I guess, because you look at that list of kids who've transferred out, and there's Hartford, who's an Ohio kid, and there's Bryce West, who's an Ohio kid, and Cody Haddad, who's an Ohio kid. And you really understand that the nature of college football has changed in a way that I kind of hate. And you bring in hired guns like Terry Moore and Earl Little, and it's better for the 2026 Buckeyes for sure. Will it be better for the Buckeyes program down the road? I guess that's the big question.
Yeah, I think, I certainly talked about this with the wide receivers. Yeah, so maybe on the defensive side, this is that one position where it's like what you're talking about, the most extreme makeover version applies here at safety, because you can look elsewhere. We talked about it with the corners, with Jermaine Matthews staying all the way through the development process and Devin Sanchez being back, even on the defensive line with Kenyatta Jackson and Edric Houston sticking around. Yes, there are new faces that are involved there. Linebacker, we already broke that down a week ago as well with Peyton Pierce and then a bunch of second-year players. Most places on the roster, you can still identify and see the development, the recruit develop, and see through the entire process with the roster. And it's not that it's impossible to see that because Jaylen McClain is still around at Ohio State, and Leroy Roker to a lesser extent, although we've not really seen him in many high leverage snaps outside of a relatively surprising appearance in the Cotton Bowl against Miami. But this is that position where Ohio State was hit the hardest by attrition, some surprising, some not surprising, and where they had to go out and make a splash. And, we can like it or dislike it, but it's not this way at every position, I guess is my point, because you couldn't really survive that way. If you were having to gamble with all 9 units, there's no way that that's sustainable. So one or two of them every year, you're going to have to hit on it and you're going to have to attack it aggressively. I think Ohio State did that in terms of the acquisitions here with Earl Little and Terry Moore. And then, through that freshman class that's coming in, Blaine Bradford at the top of that. But you don't want to have to make these gambles at multiple other position groups. Clearly, that's the situation at safety.
Yeah, and it's a little bit confusing just because Matt Guerrieri is so well thought of. The kids that he plays for love him. I mean, we talked to him last year in February and sat down with him, and he broke down why his son wears number 9 because of Malik Hartford. And then you see that Malik Hartford's on this list of guys that are departing and a player that will be playing in the Big Ten at UCLA. And so you're like, no, that's kind of sucks that you don't get a chance to see that to fruition. For a kid from Lakota West High School to have to go out to LA to play in the Big Ten, it's a little bit unfortunate. But as you mentioned, it's not like the Buckeyes didn't restock the numbers. There's 6 new bodies entering the room for Matt Guerrieri. So the question is, whereas like defensive tackle, as we talked about that, the Buckeyes lost a handful of guys that they didn't really anticipate losing early, but it seems like there was a noticeable philosophy shift about what they wanted at defensive tackle. So losing smaller defensive tackles to substitute them for bigger ones made sense. This is just kind of like for like replacements. I don't know that there's going to be a major difference in what you expect out of first year Blaine Bradford as to what you would have expected out of second year Fahim Delane. I don't think that Simeon Caldwell, who's a guy that may end up growing into being a linebacker down the road, I don't think that you're going to get anything substantially different out of him this year than you would of Malik Hartford. I don't think that you're going to get substantially different upside or potential out of Kamari Bing as you did with Bryce West. But those guys all played before and these guys haven't. So there is a bit of a gamble to it. And it's certainly not something that you want to do year in, year out. But as we've talked about for the last now 2 months and 3 days, the game has changed. The way rosters are built has changed. You have to retain your top guy at positions, and Jaylen McClain is certainly that guy. And, we're 7.5 minutes into this episode and have barely mentioned Jaylen, who is the guy that really will have to be the straw stirring the drink here for Ohio State, I think, at safety. But it's hard. It's weird, and it feels gross to be like, well, okay, here's 8 guys in, 8 guys out. That's the way the world works now. Because those developed tier signs are still all over the building. So you see those 3 guys returning, and the Buckeyes obviously had a lot of affection and an affinity for Leroy Roker. Deshaun Stewart, who broke his leg as a senior in high school, didn't play at all for Ohio State as a freshman, did not really get an opportunity to prove what he could do. He was really, really well thought of nationally and athletically as a guy that a lot of people around the country were recruiting as a cornerback. So he's got some physical skills, really long, kind of similar in styling to Hartford without maybe being a touch less physical, but maybe a bit more skilled. So, you have guys that you like. Now, the question is, how do you get Terry Moore and Earl Little and Jaylen McClain to replace what Ohio State's had at safety in the last 2 years, which is Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, and Jordan Hancock, and then Caleb Downs, Jaylen McClain, and Lorenzo Styles? Can that top group equal in any way, shape, or form what we've seen the last 2 years with Caleb Downs leading the charge? And obviously that's a tall task, but I don't think it's entirely outside of the realm of possibility that this group may actually be more dynamic in 2026 while also giving up bigger plays and making more mistakes. So it's kind of a weird catch-22.
Boy, that sounds like a lofty expectation, almost hyperbolic, Brim, more dynamic than a group with Caleb Downs. Are you're trying to feed into this narrative about Caleb's knee, aren't you? I think that we those of us who have been able to watch Caleb the last couple of years, we realize he's obviously an extreme elite football player, but did the system at Ohio State allow him to show that all the time? I don't know that it did. That wasn't his job. His job was to make sure that nothing bad happened behind him. And he was as good at that as any safety since Jordan Fuller at Ohio State, and probably as good as that as any safety that's ever played at Ohio State. Nothing bad happened behind Caleb Downs the last 2 years.
So now how do you...
If something happened to get out on the other side of the field, Jaylen McClain erased it immediately.
Right. So now that is the question with this group. What is the alignment? How do you determine what the alignment is? Who is Caleb Downs in this setup? Who is Jaylen McClain in this setup? Like, I don't think, and I know people scoffed when we were pretty praiseful of Lorenzo Styles throughout the last year, but like he played really, really well when he was healthy. So the question is now,
he played well when he was hurt.
And he played while he was hurt. And the fact that he was playing while he was hurt, I think has slipped by some folks. And, you know, when you watch him at the NFL Combine last weekend and doing the things he was doing on one arm, like you're like, yeah, that's actually not bad. And he turned himself into a likely NFL draft pick. So how do you replace that? How do you align these guys? What is the challenge for Matt Guerrieri and Matt Patricia as they try to determine who fits where? Because I don't think that there's a natural fit for Terry Moore or Earl Little that is so much better than like what Jaylen McClain could do at that spot. And like, I think that's actually the most interesting piece and why McClain is the guy that I say will be the straw that stirs this drink, because he can play the role Caleb Downs played last year, but he can obviously play the role he played. And I think he can play the slot too, if that's what if it came down to, because he's a freak. He's a dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they out of those three scenarios, and I'm not arguing the point. I think you'd least want Jaylen McClain playing in the nickel role.
Yeah.
You want someone with some of that corner ability. You know, we've basically left Miles Lockhart off of both graphics for corner and safety, which is probably unfair to him. But like,
I just don't know where he fits.
No, I know. It's unfair to talk about. Like it would be a disservice to the fact that he could play either one of those roles is good for him, but it's also hard to see exactly how he would crack the rotation in either spot at this very moment. It's a pivotal spring for him. But you know, all I was really trying to say was like, I don't know if Jaylen McClain's got the natural cover ability to play in that slot the same way that Lorenzo Styles did, or Jordan Hancock did the year before that. I mean, and I'm not saying that to diminish his talents in any way, because he is an awesome safety, and what he did last year is worthy of every bit of praise. But to me, it feels like, and there have been the last several years, I'm like, I don't know, they can play in any role, and what I'm most excited to see is who's going to play in that safety rotation and where. To me, I'm actually, and maybe I'll wind up regretting it by the end of April, it seems almost straightforward to me that Earl Little needs to play nickel, that Terry Moore, again, this is a gamble from 2 years ago on him getting back to the healthy version that he showed at Duke in 2024, that, you know, I'm trying not to be duped fully by the PFF grades, but like if he can do the Caleb Downs things that he graded out as a player with the Blue Devils, then he goes in that role. And Jaylen McClain gets to be Jaylen McClain from a year ago. Like that seems like a very viable path forward.
It seems like the most likely one, but as we saw with Ethan Anianwa and Philip Daniels and all these other guys, when you bring in guys from other schools, you just don't know. You don't know who's going to emerge around them. We don't know if a healthy Deshaun Stewart is going to change things. We don't know if Miles Lockhart, as you mentioned, heading into year 3 now for him, can take a significant step up. You just don't know. And I do feel bad. I like Miles a lot. I just don't know where he fits. And I blame the Ohio State defensive coaches for that, because they don't tell us where these guys fit all the time. But obviously he's a smaller, shiftier defensive back. He seems like a natural slot corner. But is he physical enough to be Ohio State's nickel corner or nickel safety? I don't know. Like, is there a difference between slot corner and nickel safety anymore? I don't know that either. So we're just trying to figure it out. But
well, the last time I asked Matt Patricia, he said, well, who are we facing? And then he gave me like 6 different options for guys who could play at the nickel. So that was a reminder that it's not that they don't tell us, it's that I'm not smart enough to comprehend it all.
But also, they don't know based on week to week what they're going to do. What we know is that this safety room in a defense that's evolving, it's no longer a safety driven defense. It's like a all 3 levels led defense. You can put that on a t-shirt.
It's an all 11.
Yeah. Put that on a t-shirt. All 11 players on this defense are important according to the coaches who coach here. We're workshopping it. It's going to work out. You know what else is going to work out, Austin? Yeah. Last week, I was out of town. And some would say I did not eat well.
Okay.
Some would say I did not
I
drink.
think that's up to you. You're the only one.
Some would say I did not drink little enough. Speaking of little, some would say I drank too much. That's the way it works. But I got to say, the fact is, when I got back home, I was kind of dreading stepping on the scale, and I was exactly what I was when I left. And I was like, did it. And it's truly remarkable in this maintenance mode with Awaken 180 that I feel like I can eat whatever I want, whenever I want right now, because I'm not eating stupidly. I'm just eating when I need to eat, and I'm still eating the things I want, but I'm eating less of them, and I'm controlling the urges. That's what I learned from awaken180weightloss.com. If you want to learn how I lost 35 pounds in 8 weeks, go to awaken180weightloss.com and find out for yourself. Ask Austin how he did the same thing 2 years ago. It's really remarkable because I feel like I actually have a true grasp on like how to not have the problems reoccur that reoccurred in 23 and 24. I love it.
Yeah, that's Awaken 180 weight loss for you. Make sure that you give them a look if you need any assistance with that. Can there be some help coming from this freshman class, Birm? You know how I feel about this time of year and getting too far ahead of things with instant impact and things like that. But the way that people talk about Blaine Bradford, and not just you, but people at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, certainly seems like they think there's at least a possibility of that.
I would be pretty stunned if he's not like second guy off the bench at this point. If you're looking at Leroy Roker, and again, one of the questions we got asked in the mailbag 2 weeks ago was like, what can we learn about the players that returned, or what can we discern from the players who returned versus the ones that didn't?
Yeah.
And clearly Leroy Roker, who again, Ohio State was one of 3 offers that he had out of high school. One of them was Iowa. One of them was Ohio State. And the other one after Ohio State offered was the University of Miami. Okay. Those are 3 pretty good programs for identifying and developing defensive back talent. So I know people look at star ratings and they see Roker, who is a 2-sport athlete and didn't really dive into football till later in his career, and think that he's just an also guy, but he's going to play a lot. Bradford, people are going to love him because he is a superstar. Like, this is a superstar person. Okay. Like, he wears the glasses, he dresses the shoes, he's got all the belts. Like, he's the guy that you look at and you're like, if there's somebody who's going to like be the Caleb Downs replacement as far as like swag and style, like it's Caleb, it's Blaine Bradford. So coming from a kid who grew up down the street from LSU, whose brother plays at LSU, who chose Ohio State basically a year ago on this date, and never never thought about going anywhere else. There's a ton of expectations on him. Is it fair to expect that he will play a lot? I wouldn't think so. If Fahim Delane didn't play a lot last year, I think that that's a similar path for Bradford, but it is easier this year because there's no Caleb Downs and 50-year guy like Lorenzo Styles in front of you. So there's a lot of question marks, I think, there about Terry Moore coming off the injury, or a Little coming off of, this will be his 3rd school in 4 years. Like, I think that there's at least questions that allow you to think about Blaine Bradford as a potential sneak up into the rotation guy if he is what people think he is. I don't think that that's the case for Simeon Caldwell, who again, he is like Tim Walton's nephew. So we'll see. He's probably going to outgrow safety. He's more of that 6'3", 215-pound kid right now, grows into a linebacker down the road. Caden Gephardt, I think, is someone that people in Ohio are going to love. Was committed to Clemson for 9 months, chose Ohio State on signing day after getting an offer from the Buckeyes a week before. That's certainly one to pay attention to, but not now. And then there's Kamari Bing, who the Buckeyes stole from Maryland, who I think is one of the steals of the entire 2026 recruiting class. But again, it's like you can't really expect him to do much this year. I think you're going to see a guy like Kamari Bing be a really valuable special teams player this year. And as much as the game of football and college football has changed, the guys who contribute and make a splash on special teams early are the guys that almost generally always pan out down the road. I think Kamari Bing is going to be a player like a Jordan Hancock type player down the road that people will be like, oh, I can't believe we didn't talk about him more. But Jordan Hancock didn't really have to play as a freshman either. So
that's true. Well, you mentioned special teams. That is it. That will be the last part of position preview reviews for this offseason. If you can believe it, we've reached the end of the road there. And if that's going to be on Thursday, Well, it must be almost time for a Freaky Friday mailbag. We will need your questions at the Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com. The Austin and Birm Show at gmail.com. That'll be the last chance as we get to preview, maybe make some bold predictions for the start of spring camp next week. I know I'm excited, and I think Birm is too.
I'm so excited. I'm so grateful that we get to do this job, and I'm so grateful when the off season's over so we can do this job.
Yeah, and then we get to look forward to.
Do you know how much less crap I get asked to do around the house when we have football going on?
Oh, like, it's the best.
It's the best. We need you, football. We need you, football. Oh, yes, we do. So we don't have to do crap around the house.
When we get 6 full weeks of it, and I'm going to enjoy every last moment of it, because then after that, we've got another off season. But I don't even want to think about it because spring ball hasn't started.
It's going to be May. May is the worst. You know why May is actually worse than February when it comes to off-season honeydew crap?
Because you have to go outside and do it.
Go outside, and you have no excuse. You know.
I know. Well, let's just live it up in March, because we're going to stay in the moment, seize the moment, and win the moment as we get another day closer to Ohio State starting spring camp in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Thanks for spending part of your day with us with a safety, a review, and preview on the beat, presented by the Waterworks and Hetter Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. He's Birm. I'm Austin. We'll talk to you tomorrow.